Good morning, everybody. There we are. Good morning. Hey, was cinnamon rolls good, and everybody got some? Good. I think we got some more back there, so if you want some more, you're welcome to bring that in today. So, hey, we're excited about today. Today we're going to be learning all about Gen Z, and so we're going to kind of start this off. Let me kind of tell you what's going to happen today. You have a schedule. If you don't, just kind of run over really quick. We're going to have a shorter session this morning in here. We got 4 breakout session slots. Okay, so there'll be one after another, about an hour each. The only rooms they're going to be in are this one. The fellowship hall, which is right across the hallway, and then down this hall there's a room called M107. I don't know why it's called that, but it's M107. I guess it means mezzanine, and it's the 107th room we have in the building. I don't know. But that's that room. Okay, it's down that way. You'll see a sign down there. So that's the only 3 locations. So if you get lost, find a staff member, whatever, we can make sure you get to that right place. We're real excited about it. I'll explain some of those breakout sessions in a moment. We're repeating some of them because we have a lot of interest in a few of them. We wanted to have more options. So a lot of them are repeating. So if you look on the schedule, you might be like, oh, why are we doing it twice? We're doing it twice so that if you're like, well, I kind of want to go that one, you're able to kind of hear both, okay? We're also going to be recording these, and so you'll be able to listen to them on the app. So if you miss one, don't worry, you can make sure you get that, okay? But we do encourage you to go to them. We think they're going to be really, really good. Some of you might have signed up as far as interested in the marijuana discussion. Yeah, some of you. So you'll notice on the schedule that one is not going to be happening today, and here's why. Really, truth is, we looked at these things, and that one we really felt like it needed more than an hour to talk about. And so we're actually going to be looking at talk about this first Wednesday idea and some of these intensives we're going to be doing. We're looking at doing an intensive, maybe as early as this fall, maybe in the spring, where we're going to do like a 3 or 4 week discussion on it, bringing some experts, bringing people who actually know about marijuana. And I don't know much about it. So we're going to have more of an in-depth discussion on it. So we have a panel we're going to work through, and we have some people, guests, come in and talk about that. So we're going to talk about it, but it might not just be, it's not going to be today, okay? So check out those breakout schedules. We'll show you again at the end, but if you got one of these coming in, it shows you what room it's in and what the topic is, okay? All right, Gen Z. Gen Z is no different than any other generation in that there's always slang words, okay? Like, for instance, if you grew up in Gen X like me, a lot of the words, slang words were used in like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Remember that show? And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Those kind of like cowabunga, things like that. It's weird, but they came into culture. We started using them in normal conversations. And so Gen Z has those as well. Some of you are parents and grandparents, and you've probably heard some of these, and you have no idea what they mean, right? So I invited a couple Gen Zers. Come on up, guys. Okay, so these are Gen Zers, okay? And they are going to help us understand. So I just picked out, I think there's 10 of them. I picked out words that I've heard in our youth group and on TV, and a couple I didn't. We might need a definition on, can either one of you do the Kurt thing?
Oh.
No? Okay.
Oh, we're not going to try.
I'm not going to try that one. Okay. It's weird, but I thought it'd be good for us to kind of go over some of these terms, these words, and get understanding of what they mean, okay? But here's what's going to happen. They're going to explain these. I'm going to ask them to use it in a sentence, a normal day life, okay? Explains to us. And Aaron Blazer and Nicole Blazer are going to pay special attention because they're going to come up here and have a conversation, and they're going to have to use all these words in a conversation, okay?
She's taking notes, guys.
She is taking notes. Aaron has worked all night and has not slept, so this should be really funny. Okay. Now, okay, so pay attention. Let's make sure we understand these words. Okay, the first one will be on the slide, because we don't know how to spell them either, right? So here's the first one. First one is bae. Okay, you guys heard this one? Bae, B-A-E. All right, so one of you, I don't know whichever one, explain to us what bae is.
So bae is like, for us, it's usually a boyfriend or girlfriend. So it's like you're before anyone else. So it's like, that's my girl, that's my bae.
Oh, okay. Before anyone else. You guys get it now? Okay, so Victoria, can you use that in a sentence? Oh, you just kind of, is that your sentence? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so have you
Don't
used-
mess with my bae, guys.
Okay. Don't mess with my bae, guys.
We said a lot of these, like that one in particular, in middle school. So like looking back now that we're in high school, it's a little. Here's another one.
Right, yeah, this is
Cringy.
totally old, yeah. I mean,
That's another one. Cringy. That.
Cringy?
Yeah, like looking back, it's like don't say that anymore.
okay. If you guys want to use cringy, you can too. I'm guessing that kind of means like you're cringing, but cringy. Okay. Yeah, bae, that's so like, that's almost like millennial, you know? Okay. Okay, how about this one? Basic. So explain what. Is this are these clean? I think they are. Okay. Didn't check that beforehand.
So, basic, it's pretty basic. It's just a general, so in this context, you're usually talking about like a white girl status. So like the general basic white girl is Starbucks. You got like the Jesus sandals, Birks, and like you got your ripped jeans and like your scrunchie. And
It's almost like I have here the definition, refers to someone who is unoriginal and only follows mainstream trends.
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah? So like,
So some girls will post themselves like with their Birks and their skinny jeans and their Starbucks drink and be like #basic and yeah.
okay. You know what a hashtag is?
Hashtag pound
Yeah.
sign.
#blessed.
Okay. Basic. Like you're so, like just basically like, oh, she's so basic? Yeah. Okay. I know, man, she's my bae, but she's so basic. Okay. Next
Catching
one.
on, Nate. Good job.
I get this. This one irritates me. Okay, this one irritates me. Okay, deets. All right. I know what this one means. It's just like really. I mean, this is such a long word that we feel like we need to shorten it. But go ahead and tell us what deets is.
is details.
Because details is a long word.
Yeah, so long.
Yo, Nate, give me the deets about family weekend.
So it means what? It's like what? The
The details of something.
Okay.
So yeah, like Jackson said, what are the deets of family weekend?
And I say, see here it says it's a lot of times it's like gossip. So it's kind of like, oh, did you hear?
Sometimes. So that's another thing. Deets kind of changed to tea in the last few years. So we'll be like, oh, are you spilling some tea? Or do you have some tea to spill? That's gossip.
Oh,
What's the T, sis?
like high class.
Yeah, tea, sis.
Some tea. Okay. Thank you for the deets on these slang words.
No prob.
Got it. Okay. All right. Next one is Gucci.
Okay, so Gucci means good. All right, it's also a brand, but we don't talk about the brand because I'm broke. No, Gucci means good. Yeah, if you ever talk to Kelsey Sander, that's her favorite word. I refused to say it for the first 2 years that I knew her, and now I can't not say it.
So it's basically describing something that's really good. Like,
Yeah, Kelsey's pretty Gucci, if I do say so myself.
okay. All right, the next one is an acronym, HMU.
Hit me up.
Okay, so it's kind of like Bay.
Yeah.
So,
But we don't say like moo. We just say
No,
We
that's
don't
just
say that.
usually if you're like bored or something. Usually you'll like post it on your social media and be like, "Yo, hit me up, guys. I have nothing to do. Super
people
bored."
just say hit me up because we don't want to type that much.
I'm not lazy-ish.
do any adults talk like this? Anybody like, I talk like this all the time? Francis does. Bay. Okay, hit me up. All right, which means like not hit me, but
No, like text me.
like let's
contact
get together.
me.
Yo, let's
Not
converse.
necessarily get together, but just text me because I'm bored.
Yeah, text me on board. I need
Converse
some
me.
deets
Converse
on
with
some
me. Let's make
bays and
plans.
stuff. Yeah. Okay. I hear this one a lot. All right, this one's popular. Lit. Now, I think this meant something different in the Gen X time. So I feel like we need a little bit of clarification because lit, let me give you Gen Zers a little bit. Lit means you were on some stuff and you were drunk, right? Drinking and just lit. No, I was lit, bro. So, what? Red Solo Cup, we are lit. That's what that means. So it has changed meaning a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, like, some older parts of Gen Z might use lit in that context, but
Now it
the
just seems to be like
the
you're
middle
woke.
schoolers, high schoolers, we use it as a like this is fun. So like you could say this party is lit, but people aren't actually drunk there.
Yeah, so it could be like youth group. Youth group is lit tonight.
Yeah.
But we can't post that on our church page.
No, okay, no, actually though, like some youth groups do because they know that like the people that like there's not going to be alcohol and drugs, and so it's just advertising that we are having fun, we're having a good time. So they will say, oh, this is lit.
I don't know. Some churches, they do that. Okay, next one is on fleek. 2 words.
Girl, your eyebrows on fleek. That's how you
it
would
means
say
they
that.
look really good.
Your
Yeah,
eyebrows
so like
on-
your eyes, because girls like to do their eyebrows and like kind of fill them in and shape them. So like your eyebrows look good. They look fantastic.
Good question.
No, other things can be on fleek, but you're usually gonna hear it with eyebrows.
Okay. On fleek. I like that one. Okay, Jackson mentioned this one a minute ago. This one is pretty popular. Woke. I actually heard politicians talk about this last week, and they used the term woke, and they were in
need
their
to stay
70s.
woke, guys.
Okay, so describe what woke means.
So, lately a big thing that's going around Kansas City is birds aren't real. So like you guys, so it can mean either you be woke, like wake up, kind of see the real thing, or it can mean like what lit used to mean. It's really
Okay.
up for debate at this
Yeah, you gotta
point
kind
in
of
time.
take into context who is saying it. So like some people will, like you said, use it for like conspiracy theories and be like, yo guys, we need to stay woke. Like wake up and see what's really happening. And some people are like, yeah man, I'm staying woke, yo. It's
pretty lit.
They're not awake at all.
Yeah, let's go back to the birds. Sounds like you guys have been lit a little too much. You're talking about birds are real. What's next? The Earth being flat? Okay. All right. Here's an interesting one. Weird flex, but okay.
Oh god.
Weird flex, but okay.
So, it's when you do a really like, I don't know, it's weird, it's a hard thing to explain. It's like when you do a really like goofy thing, but it still accomplishes the tasks that you've been trying to complete. So you just kind of say weird flex, but okay, I dig it, I like it, it's different.
I'm trying to think of an example.
Okay, got an idea, because I think I'm following you on this. What if, this is what I like to call Jesus juke, okay? Some of my people know what this is. The Jesus juke is when you say something, a lot of times this is what's on a church board up front, right? So there's little sayings, and you're like, okay, it's got play on words kind of thing. You know, like if it's like, you think it's hot out here, you know, those kind of things on the church sign. Would that be kind of like, say, the Jesus juke? It's kind of like you're throwing it in there, and it's kind of like, oh, weird flex, but okay, I get your point.
It's
right?
like the Jesus juke, but for
Not
like
Jesus.
the mainstream non-church people.
Yeah. Okay, weird flex, but okay. All right. Last one here is yeet. What does yeet mean?
So, if you know Tommy Ferentz, usually if he throws anything, he usually yells yeet and just throws something. So it means you're just like either
Getting rid of it.
like,
Now, is that
getting
just
rid of
Tommy,
it.
or is that what, like...
No.
Usually
that's
it means
multiple
just getting
people.
rid of it, but the way he does it is really awkward.
So he has his own definition of what yeet is.
So it's really just like getting rid of something. And so sometimes you'll see teenagers playing games about it, and like they'll come up to someone, like, okay, if I'm holding my phone, my friend could come up to me and be like, yeet it, and so you have to throw it immediately. And like that's just the game. I don't know why we do these
Okay.
things, but we do. So yeah, just kind of getting rid of it or not doing something.
And then it can also go into, we've learned to put it into different tenses. So like, I totally yoded it. I yeeted it.
That's like the past tense and present
Yeah.
tense
Yeah.
and future tense.
Yeah, it's weird, guys. Sorry.
Welcome to Gen Z.
Okay. That's all I have, guys. Thank you for your interpretations. Let's give them a hand. Guys. That helps us. All right, Aaron, Nicole, let's see if we can get some, you guys are Gen Xers, right? Let's see if we can get some Gen Xers to, actually, you're millennials? Oh boy. Okay, so I just want to see if you have a normal conversation. Just kind of improv, so just want to see if you can just use these words in a normal, I don't know,
Okay, just
conversation.
checking.
So maybe let's set the scene, Aaron comes home from work, and that's
Hey,
it. Okay, all right.
HMU.
So let's see how many we can use in these. And let's make the rule that every time you exchange, like if it's his turn to talk, he has to at least use one of these. Let's say double points if you can use multiple ones in one sentence, and it still makes sense. Still makes sense. Okay? Okay, who wants to start? Let's see how many you can do. You can see
Hey,
them up there.
babe, you look basic.
Oh.
Oh, maybe I screwed up. Maybe you're a little Gucci. If this didn't offend you, will you HMU me later?
Hey, let's keep this PG here.
Sorry.
He's lit.
Weird flex, but okay.
Did you hear? Someone's eyebrows were on fleek. They looked really, really Gucci.
What's the deets?
About what? Our date night?
No, what's
Oh.
weird flex, but okay.
That's nice.
Listen, I feel like this party is lit. Like it's really fun.
Nah, just basic.
I have iced coffee back there. I'm super basic today. Hey, I'm gonna need you to eat that.
Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm
Gotta be in
forgetting
the
what
budget.
stuff means.
Listen, Bae. I need you to call your mom and get the deets and see if she can watch our kids tonight.
I'll HMU her later.
Yeah, HMU.
Nice job. Okay.
Did we
Hey,
get 'em
that's
all?
pretty good, guys.
Oh, hey, was this really cringy?
It's really cringy. Yes. Hey, good job, right? That's good. Not bad, guys. I totally understood everything you said. All right. Hey, we'll do the floss thing later. Okay, Victoria? Later on at the session, at the very, very end, we're going to have Victoria come up, maybe a couple other Gen Zers, and teach us all how to floss. Okay? So you all better stick around. Okay, let's talk for a few minutes. I want to get to your sessions. Let's talk for a few minutes about Gen Z. I want to give you a basic overview of them. It's impossible for us to complete that in 15 minutes, but that's why we have these sessions today, and I'll explain that in a minute. These sessions you're going to go to all have to do with Gen Z, and they'll go into more detail on those specific things. So I'm going to kind of touch on them. I want to give you just a basic, normal, not Gen Z word, basic idea of who Gen Z is, okay? Give you the deets. I'm getting into the deets. Yeet. Okay. So it's kind of like what David said last night, Gen X. It's really hard to determine dates and where this all happens. It's getting harder and harder because technology is really what's forming what we call and define generations. And so it's really, really hard to determine exactly. You'll get different viewpoints on when a Gen Zer was born and that generation, and some of them overlap. But typically, most say that somewhere in the late 90s to 2010. So anybody that's born, basically anybody that's under 25 years old, that would constitute as Gen Z. And some of you are kind of like, well, I'm 24 and I'm more millennial. We understand that. It's just more when you grew up, but that's the typical time period we're talking about. Most of them are under 25 years old. They're called Gen Z because many believe it's the last generation. Not necessarily because the world's going to end, but because this is going to be the last generation we're ever going to be able to really identify, because there's so much changing going on. Really, literally every few years, there's a new big technology that comes out that changes life as we know it. And so that it's really hard to define a generation. So they're saying this is going to be the last generation that we're able to really define and say this is kind of what we're seeing in this group. And so culture is just moving at a rapid pace. So that's why they're called Gen Z. They're also called iGen. You'll hear that somewhere. but Gen Z is the main term that they use. Let me kind of just paint a picture for you, and let's just step into the world of a Gen Zer, because we are traditionalists, we are boomers, we are Gen X, and we're millennials, and we need to kind of get a perspective of a Gen Zer. So let me take you back a little bit. Most Gen Zers have never heard a dial tone. Okay, so think about that. They've never heard a dial tone. They've never used a payphone. Do you remember when mom and dad would give you a quarter to leave in your wallet or leave in your car so that if you needed to, you could make a phone call home? Remember that? I remember in high school when it went up to 35 cents, where I had to have a quarter and a dime to have a payphone. Gen Zers, you can't even find payphones anywhere anymore, right? So it's just a totally different life. They've never had to do it. They've never needed to make a collect call. Remember those? Remember collect calls? I did those in college. And that was only in 2000, 2001. So collect calls were big, and you know what I would do? You know, you can kind of be that, will you receive a collect call from, and you can say your name, and then they started receiving bills. I would try and fit my message in that little time space. Mom, okay, but can you put $50 in the bank? You know, hang up, and she wouldn't have to receive the collect call, right? You just learn tricks on that. These kids have never had to make a collect call. They don't even know what that is. Basically what that is, kids, is your parents would pay for the bill. So you make a long distance. You don't even know what long distance is. You could only make a call within the city. But if you had a relative in another state, you had to pay a lot of money to make that phone call. And it counted how many minutes, right? We just don't have that anymore. Most of them have never picked up or even used or know what an encyclopedia is. So some of us have Encyclopedia Britannicas. I did a research paper in college, and I had to go to use the encyclopedias. All right? They just don't do that. They rely on Google. And so Google is no longer a noun. In fact, now it's a verb in the dictionary. They added it to the dictionary. Google is a verb. So you Google it, right? You need information, you Google it. So that's the world they grow up in. That's how they research something, Google. More than likely, they have never lit a postage stamp. Funny story, about 3 years ago, with our youth group downstairs, we were writing letters to some prisoners who were with the Voice of the Martyrs, prisoners who were in jail for their faith around the world. And so we had the kids write a letter, and literally, we had to show them how to write on an envelope. So I said, hey, put your address on the envelope. They said, where? And you should have seen, I should have kept them, because it was like on the side, on the back. They didn't know you put it in the left corner. Someone put it in the right corner. No, that's where the stamp goes. What's a stamp? They had no clue. They've never written letters. Most of them have not written handwritten letters. Just a different world. You email, you text, you call. You hit them up, HMU, on social media, right? It's just a different world. They've never been to Blockbuster. Most of them didn't even know what that was. I wore a shirt last night that said, be kind, please rewind. They said, hey, why didn't you wear something like the other guys about something back in the day? I was like, it is. It's called Blockbuster. You used to go and you'd pick out a movie, and if they didn't have, they had like 40 copies, and if they're out, you're like, well, I guess we can't watch the movie we wanted to watch. And then we used to go and rent like a Nintendo from Blockbuster in a huge suitcase, right? So that Blockbuster was lit. They have never known a time when there was no such thing as the internet. Think about that. This is really what defines Gen Z. They have never known a time where there was no internet. I remember when I first used the internet. It's kind of like what Matthias talked about tonight. That dial-up tone, and your mom would pick up the phone when you're online, and it kicks you off, right? And we'd be trying to illegally download songs on Napster, and it would take 30 minutes to download a song, right? Remember that? And so we would pirate these things, and that's what internet was like. It took time to dial up, to get connected, and it was really, really slow. Do you remember going to, I did this because we didn't have enough money, but I'd go to Best Buy and pick up those AOL free, 10 hours free on the internet things, and I'd just take a stack of them, right? Because they give them away when you buy something. So I'd say, yeah, I'll take a few of those. And I had hours of free internet. It wasn't free. You had to pay for how many hours you're on there. That was just what it was. They have never heard, if I say AOL, do you guys know what that is? No clue? The older ones? Okay, yeah. Did you know that when you had an email, it would say, you've got mail? It was awesome. You guys have never really heard that. You've never expressed or heard that from your computer. They've never known a time where there wasn't a cell phone. I remember when I got my first cell phone. Do you? They've always had them readily available. The announcement of someone, this is interesting. The announcement of someone being the first woman to do something or the first black person to hold a prominent position has impressed only their parents. And I think that's a great thing. But they're growing up in a very diverse world. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But they're growing up in a very diverse world. And so we're amazed that, wow, a woman's finally doing this. They're like, yeah, what do you mean? They're just growing up in a completely different world than we are. The therapeutic use of marijuana has always been legal in a growing number of American states. They're used to it. So this is going to be an issue because they're not going to understand why some of us have a hard time with the legalization of marijuana because they've grown up with it being legal in states. So it's going to be an issue down the road. That's why we're going to talk about it. They've always worn seatbelts, and we talked about this a little bit last night, unlike others of us who rode in station wagons or in the back of vans with the seats out. I used to ride in the back of the car between the window sill and the back. I'd lay down up there. You guys ever do that? Didn't care about seat belts. You didn't, right? Most of us, and here's what also defines me, is we can all remember, when you watched that 9/11 footage last night, did you flash back to where you were when that happened? I did. I was in my college duplex, eating breakfast right before my New Testament class at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it came on TV, and I could still feel it. I know what it was like. I was there. We remember that. They do. They were either really, really young, 2, 3 years old, they don't remember it, or they weren't even born yet. Think about all things that go with 9/11, the airports, going through security, all this kind of stuff. I remember you just kind of walked on a plane, right? Remember that? Didn't really have much security. It's kind of scary now looking back. But these kids are used to having to hold the thing and, do all the weird stuff you have to do in an airport, take your shoes off. They're just used to that. To us, we're just not because we experienced 9/11. So 9/11 to them is like Watergate to millennials. They just heard about it, okay? It's like the JFK assassination to Gen Xers. It's like the Holocaust to boomers. They heard about it, but they weren't really there. And it's like World War I to traditionalists. So that's how they view 9/11. It's something that happened, but they didn't really experience it. They just had repercussions of what happened from it. By the way, I wrote this down this morning. You guys remember Columbia House? I just thought of that. Okay, in order to listen to music, guys, nowadays, like for instance, I asked them, hey, what's a good song we can play for this when we do some flossing in a little bit? They gave me a song. It's already ready to play later on. You know why? Because we got a thing called Spotify or Apple Music. When we wanted a song, we had to either listen to on the radio or call in, and I still remember the phone number. It's 576-7, and then whatever radio station is. So 107.3 was 576-7107, and you would call and you'd say, can you play Alive by Pearl Jam? And you'd sit there and wait. And then when it came on, you'd hit record on your tape. That's why a mixtape for your bay was lit. Because it took time to make that. You guys who make playlists, Spotify playlists, oh, my sweetheart made me a Spotify playlist. Nothing. We waited. And then Columbia House was a company where you could get this deal. 12 CDs for 1 cent. Remember that? You just had to buy 6 CDs over a 2-year period. And my parents were ticked because what happened is I get these 12 CDs for 1 cent, and then I'd wait till the very end of that subscription, 2 years, and I had to fork over like $120. They overpriced these CDs. I got to buy 6 CDs, right? That's what Columbia House was. And you had to know what songs you wanted because you couldn't figure it out. You had to get these little stamps and stick it on, lick them, and put them on your selections. That's what life was like. Gen Z has never had to watch a TV show when it actually aired. The internet has forever changed the way a generation views media. With apps like Netflix, Hulu, it's personalized entertainment instantly, and technology like DVR allows us to pause and fast forward live television. It didn't happen back in the day. I watched Saved by the Bell every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. And I had to get up early on Saturday mornings. My kids are like, sleep in, we'll watch it later on Hulu. It's just a totally different life. They have never had to memorize directions or stop to ask a gas station attendant or yell at their husband for not getting directions because GPS allows us to get anywhere we want to with turn-by-turn directions. People don't know how to get around anymore because you just rely so much on Siri or our phones and GPS. The greatest tragedy in the lifetime of Gen Zers that changed the way they see the world is not 9/11, because remember, they weren't around for that. Here's what it is: school shootings. It's the number one fear that kids have. It's the biggest issue that they're dealing with. It's changed the world. School shootings. And second is the recession of 2008. Those are the two big things so far that have happened to Gen Zers that's changed the world. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Gen Z is the largest generation alive, will be the largest generation alive. Constitutes 25.9%. Go to the next slide there. Go to the next one. Yep. 25.9% of the U.S. population. Millennials are 24.5% of the population. Gen X is 15.4%, even more than baby boomers at 23.6%. I know it was mentioned last night that boomers are still largest and millennials are going to catch up. Actually, Gen Zers are number one. So there's more Gen Zers than any other generation alive. By 2020, members of Generation Z will account for 40% of all consumption. So all money that's exchanged, 40% of it will be Gen Zers. Okay? They have the most powerful consumer force in the financial market today. Their buying power is $44 billion per year. And it expands to $600 billion when considering the influence they have on their parents' spending. So here's what happens. Gen Zers, they can, say, I really want my eyebrows to be on fleek. And so mom and dad will say, yeet, and give me the deets, and, we'll figure that out. So literally, the Gen Zers parents are just forking over money for the kids. They got to have a new car at 16 years old. They got to have an iPhone at 10 years old. And so they're just using all these expensive things their parents are giving them. And so literally, they're the number one target for marketers. So if you watch commercials, they're all geared towards Gen Z. And what's kind of sad is that the church is behind in this. That's one reason we're doing this weekend. Is because, like we typically sometimes are, the church is behind on this, and the marketers, the ones who are actually, they're studying this generation because they need to make money, and they need to survive. So they're looking at what it is to reach these kids, what it is to reach this generation. And at the church, we just kind of go back to the old mentality. We're behind even what the marketers are. So the marketers, if you really want to know who's the best at understanding Gen Z, it's the people who have to sell to them. Gen Z is the most ethnically diverse. And by the way, we're going to talk about, there's a lot of bad things we're going to talk about, but I want you to see that there's exciting things about this generation. There's some exciting stuff. Gen Z is the most ethnically, racially diverse generation ever to exist in the United States. In 2006, there was a record number of births in the United States. That's where that boom comes from, these Gen Zers. 49% of those births were Hispanic in the United States. So half of the births in 2006 were Hispanic. Get this, since the early 1700s, the most common last name in the U.S. was Smith. Number 2 was Jones. Since 2006, the most common name in the United States is Rodriguez. It's estimated that the 2020 census will conclude that more than half of all U.S. children are non-white. And so this is exciting too. This is a great thing. This isn't a sad thing at all. This is a great thing, especially when it's the church, because we're called to reach the nations. And guess what? Nations are coming to us. The world is getting smaller. We can really reach out, but we have to work on our diversity. We have to work on our racial tensions. We have to, and that's why we're having a session today on racial tension and diversity. That's one reason we chose that session. Here's some characteristics of Gen Z. The most important thing to this generation, the top thing that they are concerned about, is connection and friendship. That's the most important thing to them. It's often thought that this generation is only on their devices, and so we make them have to turn them off, and they're always on them. They're always on them. They're always on their phones, always on the internet, always doing these things. And we have this fear that they aren't connecting with other humans. You need to turn it off, and you need to actually be around people. The truth of the matter is, they are on their devices a lot. They are. But they're on these devices for a reason, for connection and friendship. So that's your decision in your family how to monitor that, but realize that that's the way that they connect. That's the way they converse with one another. They play video games. Like when I play video games, like when I played Nintendo out there, I played by myself. I was Mario. Luigi was kind of like, Okay, Mario was awesome. And it's one player. And my brother's like, hey, we want to play 2 players? Like, no, you play later. Video games are very one-player games. These kids now, they're playing video games not necessarily just to play the game. They're playing video games to play with their friends. So when you see that they're really wanting to play these games and connect and go online, they're not trying to get away from the world, they're actually entering into their world. And so that's your decision as a family, but I just want you to hear that that's the heart of what they're doing. They're connecting with their friends. So just keep that in mind. That's the most important thing to them. And this is why we're having a session today on digital natives. So they're having a session that's talking about all these technological things and how they're actually doing amazing, amazing things. And we don't need to be afraid of them. We can actually encourage our kids with these things. So attend the digital natives breakout today. So that's what they care most about. But here's their greatest fear. The greatest fear is failure and obscurity. Okay? This generation is driven to succeed. They're far from lazy. Okay? This generation, actually, the reason they don't want to be lazy is because they hear how we dog on the millennials, and they don't want to be dogged like that. The truth. They're afraid to become millennials. And so they work hard. They're not lazy. Not necessarily millennials either. We misunderstand them. But Gen Zers, they are scared to death to be labeled as lazy. So they work hard. They work hard at school. They're getting the best grades of any generation that's ever existed. They're working hard at their studies. They're afraid that if they don't succeed, that they won't get a job. And so this generation, more than any other generation, seeks to make a difference in the world. They care immensely about their education, getting good grades. And the reason they want to get good grades is because they want to land a job when they go to college. And what we tend to look at is, have you guys ever heard of a gap year? It's a new thing. It's a thing that students are doing now. They're graduating high school, and then they're taking a gap year where they're just saying, I'm just going to stay at home, and I'm going to work. And a lot of what we do as older generations, we say, what a lazy thing to do. Get to work. Go to college, do these things. But what the mindset of what Gen Zers have is, I don't want to go to, again, their fear is that they're going to fail. And if you're anything like me, and like most people go to college, you change your major like 3 or 4 times. And so you end up spending all this money and wasting all this money, and they're scared to death about the rising debt of college. They're scared to death of it. They're graduating with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And so they take a gap year to really seek out what it is they feel like they want to do to make a difference in the world. So them taking a gap year, taking their time, is not necessarily them being lazy. There are some, I'm sure, but many of them are just trying to figure things out because they're afraid that they might make the wrong decision. They want to just be sure on what their path is headed towards. And so career and figuring out what they can do with their life to impact the world is the number one thing that's important to them. This is why they're getting married now. The average is 28 years old for Gen Zers. Okay? They're getting married later because they want to get their career established, because they don't want to get married with a bunch of debt. They want to get a good job, figure out what it is they love to do, then take their time, find a spouse, and be debt-free so they can enjoy life together and have children. And so I just want you to see it. Gen Zers are not lazy. They're not slow in making decisions. They're actually very meticulous in trying to make the right decision. However, sometimes Gen Zers can become very depressed. Their life doesn't add up to what they were hoping. They want to make a difference in the world, and so they go into social work. Problem is, social work doesn't pay a whole lot, and they graduate with $150,000 of student loans, and they're in social work because they want to make a difference. It can be very depressing. And they're paying student loans off for 10, 20 years. And so they struggle with depression. And there's a lot of pressure on them to succeed. So I want you to think about this. The pressure is not only that they put on themselves to try and succeed, to make sure I get a good education, get a good job, that pressure of getting good grades, of making that sports team, to get that scholarship, that pressure they put on themselves, but there's also a lot of pressure from parents. You have to do this, you have to do this. That's why kids are playing sports really, really early in life, and they're traveling teams, and these kind of things, and those are okay. It's just, they have a lot of pressure on them in order to succeed, get that scholarship, because you're not going to be able to go to school without that. So there's a lot of pressure from parents. There's pressure from friends. Now with social media, their friends post something of a grade that they got or their SAT score, and they didn't get that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known that in our day. But it's all out there, and so there's just this competition of where I stand with my friends, and if I'm on level with them. There's a lot of pressure to measure up to everybody else on what they see on social media. Listen, when a girl takes a picture on Instagram, she doesn't post the ugly one. She posts the really, really good one with the correct light. Have you ever seen people do this, especially Gen Zers and millennials? They'll take a photo and they'll look at it and be like, ugh. They'll suck in, whatever it is, to get that right picture, that right light. And not only that, then you have filters. Okay? People don't see that. All they see is the finished product. Because nobody takes their worst photo and puts it on Instagram. They take their best. And so when you're sitting at home and your hair's all messed up and you smell and you look at this beautiful friend of yours and she's got this beautiful smile, perfectly white teeth, and you're looking like you do right now, you're not on fleek, okay? You get depressed. So this generation struggles with depression. They struggle with anxiety, fear, a lot of it. And so that's why we're having a session today, also, on a generation that's full of insecurity and fear. So I encourage you to go to that one. They've had to grow up really fast. They've had to become adults before most of us have ever had to. 6th graders are into politics now. They are. You have 4th, 5th graders wearing hats that have a candidate on it, or shirts that have a candidate on it, or anti-candidate. You have protests. You have all these kind of things, and they're kids. And when I was in school, I didn't even think about that stuff. It wasn't even on my radar. But with 24-hour news cycle, their parents constantly talking about it, and with social media, they're forced to have to deal with issues they've never had to deal with before. I didn't have to deal with, in 2nd grade, a classmate that now sees himself as a boy but was born a girl. I didn't have to deal with that. But with the political pressure and all these kind of things in our society, 2nd graders are having to deal with this. And I'll tell you, Cordell Mason, down the street, just this last year, because I have a friend who's in their daughter's in 2nd grade, their class, a teacher had to get up in front of the whole class and explain how this girl is no longer a girl, but they now need to call her a boy. We can shake our heads at that and say, I can't believe that would hit. This is down the street, guys. But this is just the world we live in. And we have to have discussions about this that we never had to do that before. And so they're growing up in a intense political environment, which is why we're having a session today on growing up in an intense political environment. And I encourage you to go to that. They're having to grow up earlier too, and having to be in romance earlier. And so there's apps called Tinder. If you don't know what that is, you need to go to the session on it. If you don't know what it means to Netflix and chill, you probably need to go to that session in case you see that text on your daughter's phone. Okay? So we're talking about romance. I'm going to be leading a session on answering hard questions. Some of these issues, how do we talk about them as a family? We'll be leading a session on that. All these things are to say, all these sessions we're doing today all have to do with Gen Z, and I encourage you to choose wisely and go to those that you are really interested in. They're growing up in a confusing religious world. I'll end with this. They're growing up in an intense, confusing religious world. Catholic priest scandals, megachurch pastors living questionable lives, moral failures of people of faith. And so they're confused about religion, which is why they're leaving it. They're leaving the religion. The fastest growing religion in the United States, especially among Gen Zers, is the nuns. Not N-U-N-S, but N-O-N-E-S, meaning they're leaving the denominations. And we heard that a little bit last night about Gen Xers and millennials. They're less concerned about denominations. But here's the deal. They're leaving that, and they're not affiliating with religion, but they're very, very interested, more than any other generation. Gen Z is interested in spirituality. So this is a huge opportunity for us. They are so interested. Listen, here's a stat from George Barna. I'm going with this. A survey was done among Gen Zers, and they asked them this question. If a friend of yours invited you to attend a local church, would you go? Okay, so Gen Zers, if a friend asked you to go to church, would you go? 50% of them said they would strongly consider going to church if a friend invited them because their personal relationship with them. Remember, what's the most important thing to a Gen Zer? Friendship. So if a friend asked them to go to church, they don't want to let that friend down. And so 50% of them said, yeah, I'd probably go. 20% said that without question they would go. So out of this, 70% of Gen Zers would go to church if a friend asked them. Here's the deal. With Gen Zers, evangelism is not happening knocking on doors or having a church event and asking them to come. It won't happen. We will not reach this generation. Hear me. We will not reach this generation of Gen Zers by doing the same methods that we've done in the past. It just will not happen. As good as those were, and as timely as those were for those generations, they aren't going to work for this generation. The way that we're going to evangelize with this generation is through something called friendship evangelism. We've got to encourage our kids to be friends. We've got to encourage our kids to invite their friends. We've got to encourage them to become friends with people, to engage in relationships. And those take time. But that's the way we're going to reach Gen Z. And so that's why we're having another breakout called Irreligious Losing My Religion today. Okay? So all these breakouts have to do with Gen Z. And so we encourage you to go with them. The key is this. The key today is to try and listen and understand. I want you to really try and listen and understand. You're going to have opinions, especially in the politics one. You're going to have to fight off some stuff. This is not about affiliating with a certain party and this kind of, we need to get back to this or whatever. That's not the point. The point is to listen. Listen to what Gen Z is saying. Listen to what they're saying about religion. Listen to what they're saying about their anxieties and their fears. Listen to what they're saying about the questions that they have. So this is an opportunity for us to try and understand. Can we do that today? Okay? So on the screen we're going to have, do we have that up there, the breakouts listed? Do we not? Okay, right here. There we are. Again, I mentioned that. Breakout 1 is from 9. Well, we're late, so we'll be fine. We'll adjust. Generation full of insecurity. That will happen in ML 107. Race relations and diversity in the fellowship hall. And irreligious, losing my religion will be in this room. And so if you, for the rest of those, grab one of these right outside the Welcome Center, and it has the rooms listed and what those breakouts are. Okay? There's lunch in the middle. There's snacks out there in between the sessions. And so there's a 15, 20-minute in between each session. We have plenty of time. We'll make up our time in those, okay? All right, I'm going to go ahead and release you. Let me pray and ask the Lord to bless our time together. God, thank you for this time. We thank you for this morning and for all those that make this event happen. Pray for all our breakout leaders and all those who are going to sessions. God, give us ears to hear one another. Give us understanding to help us because we care about this generation, whether they're our kids, whether they're our grandkids, whether they're our neighbors, or we just care about passing on truth to the next generation. Help us to understand them, Lord, because you have made them and you have designed this time and place us here in it. And so may we be quick to hear and slow to speak today. And so we pray and ask you to bless our time together and the remainder of this time today. In Jesus' name, amen.